has been a little bit of time since I made my last YouTube update video. I mentioned in my last video I was waiting for my new setup to arrive, something that's a lot faster and capable of handling video editing and the like. I've finally got the setup in and I'm using it right now, and I'm super excited because everything's super fast. It doesn't seem like I'm gonna have to worry about my video editing software crashing when I'm editing videos, and this just means I'm more excited and more keen to make you guys more YouTube videos. So I do have some plans for videos coming up in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be posting a lot more than I did before, and we're going to start off with a major market update on Bitcoin and the market as a whole, and the general health of the market right now. I think it's a very exciting time. These next few months I think are going to be incredible, similar to if you were back here in 2017 and you were there during the tail end of the bull run and you saw everything was essentially going up. I think we're going to see something very, very similar here over the next couple of months. It's not going to be exactly like 2017, but it's going to be the closest thing you're going to get, I think, that we've had in the last 2 or 3 years of this bear market. So we are now officially in a bull market. If you guys have seen my charts, you're aware that I do believe that we've officially started the bull market, kicked it off of 3.1K. And right now we're essentially in one larger consolidation phase before we break out and continue on to new all-time highs. So let's jump right into it, guys. We're going to talk about Bitcoin. I'm going to make some other YouTube videos in the next few days, maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, about some other specific altcoins. But right now we're going to start off with a video about the market as a whole. And we're going to start off with Bitcoin, guys. So this chart that you see in front of you, this was posted on my TradingView and shared with viewers in one of my YouTube videos on April 3rd. So it's now August, May, June, July, August, about 4 months ago. And this is when we had that major flash crash down to 3.7K on Bitcoin, and everyone was freaking out. And I mentioned that was likely the bottom and that we're likely now headed up. So I posted this chart when we were in the 5Ks. I made it official on TradingView when we were in the 6Ks. But essentially what I said was I'm looking for a move up to 14K plus, 14K being the highs right here. Move up to 14K plus and then a correction and then a break of all-time highs sometime next year. So if we go ahead and see how this panned out so far, it's pretty much moving as I expected. Everything's going according to plan, which is another reason why I never really made many more YouTube video updates, because there really wasn't much to update. But let's go ahead and take a closer look at where we are today, guys. All right, guys, so this is the chart all zoomed in here for you. And as you guys can see, we've been essentially following the squiggly pretty well here. It's taking a little bit longer than originally expected. This chart, however, was made more with a wave structure idea in mind. I wasn't focusing so much on how much time it was going to take, rather the wave structure that I wanted to demonstrate for everyone. But yeah, I am expecting it to take longer than the last run took, which is what these time markers are. The last run from our low to our high took about 1477 days. So I'm expecting this run from our low to our high to take longer than that. This was estimated about 1939 days. That's completely a rough estimate. It just has to take longer than 1477. I'm not sure how long it's going to take. It could take longer than 2,000 days. It could be less than 2,000 days, but this is under the assumption that it takes about 2,000 days for this to play out. And thus far, we are moving up quite nicely here. Let's go ahead and zoom in further into this little section of the chart that we're at now, and we'll continue from there. All right, guys, so I've zoomed in further, and this is the area of the chart that we're on now, a very interesting area, and let's talk about what I'm expecting here over the next couple of months. So we'll start off with checking the weekly time frame, because this is really the most significant level on the chart right now. We have this area, which was essentially the consolidation, the apex of this consolidation from our highs at 14K. We were making lower highs, we were making higher lows. That culminated in a breakdown from this region right here. And since then, we rejected 3 times before finally breaking through a few weeks ago, right? So this was the area of reaccumulation. Many believed it was actually distribution for another leg down. But based on what I was seeing, I was very confident it was reaccumulation. I believe I did make a YouTube video demonstrating why I believe that, and sure enough, we did end up breaking to the upside and finally breaking this area of resistance on the weekly time frame, which was super significant. Guys, now that we're above this level, it's essentially acting as support. So for me, this is essentially our new floor before we break 14K. So I do expect that this area essentially holds and that eventually we sort of grind our way up to 14K plus. I'm expecting us to reach above 14K, but below 20K, somewhere about 15, 16, 17,000, somewhere around this region here for a leg up before one more larger correction down. And then I expect that we actually make the real impulse to match this leg up to break 20K here. So that's kind of my thoughts here. I've talked about this quite a few times now. And this is, again, the impulse that I'm talking about. This, I believe, is that corrective wave 2. And then I believe we're going to finally get our wave 3 impulse after we push above 14K, come back down. So it's going to look something like this. Let's go ahead and something like this. We're going to go up above 14K, below 20K, come back down for a big correction, and then get another impulsive move to match the aggression of this one to the upside to finally break the highs here at 20K. And that's when I think we're really going to take off here. So I think we do have some time. I think we're not going to hit new highs, as I've said before, until 2021. And so a lot of people calling for new highs in the next couple of months. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than that here. And I do think that this drop is really going to surprise a lot of people, but I think it's going to be good for us nonetheless, guys. So let's talk about where we are now. The important thing, guys, here to remember is that this area is now support, right? So essentially, in my opinion, downside is limited to this region here, which means that any dip and every dip is essentially a buy the dip up, unless, of course, this region is lost, which, again, I'm not expecting. So as long as this region holds, which I do expect it will, any dip that we get here to the downside is just a gift. It's a chance to buy more before we break 14K. It's a chance to accumulate your altcoins or whatever coin it is that you like before we continue higher. Because once we do start moving up to 14K plus, the entire market will move up with Bitcoin. It's not just Bitcoin that's going to move up. Sorry, guys, I got a phone call. Where was I? So any drop down here is a chance to accumulate your favorite coins. Let's go ahead now to the lower time frame and take a look at what I'm seeing on the lower time frames. So a couple of days ago on Twitter, guys, we had pushed up above this lower trend line, and a lot of people were looking for a breakout. I mentioned I think that we're heading for a pullback, and I said if we lose this, that's our confirmation that we're going to see a pullback. But basically, I've taken profit on a lot of my positions here, expecting some sort of a dip. Now, make no mistake, this dip is a buy the dip opportunity. You should be picking at your favorite alts right now, in my opinion, and loading up on them. That's what I'm doing, at least. So I took profits and I'm reloading on everything essentially on this drop to the downside. Where will this drop end? That's the big question that everyone wants to know. I think there's two key areas that this drop may end, two areas of interest, two important levels. The first is going to be the lows here at 11.1K, and then the second is going to be lows here at 10.5K. Now, guys, this area right here, this prior resistance that is now support, this is the dream long entry, okay? If we get here, this is the chance that everyone is waiting for, okay? And essentially what this is it's a high time frame retest of this area of this support resistance flip. So this area of resistance that's now support. We haven't actually retested it since breaking through on the high time frame. So a retest at some point, at one point or another, I think is due and quite likely. It just so happens that whenever Bitcoin makes big breakouts such as this one, we usually come to retest these levels at some point or another. Take 6K, for example, a major breakdown. We broke out of it here, and then we got our retest right here. And then again, we tested it with the flash crash that we saw when all the markets crashed in March. But this was essentially the retest of that 6K level. We broke out of it here, never really got a clean retest until we went back here. So eventually these levels tend to get retested at some point or the other. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to retest it here in the coming days. And I think a lot of people are waiting for this level. It makes total sense for you guys to be bidding this region. Absolutely, no doubt about it. This is the level that you want to be bidding. However, I think that it doesn't necessarily mean we'll get there in the next couple of days or that this crash is going to lead to that level. All right, if it does, it's like an automatic buy. Okay, but there's a chance that it doesn't. And the reason I say that is because you'll recall that I mentioned once we do get this leg up above 14K to 16 or 17K, we're due for a correction, all right? And personally, I would rather we not test this area now and leave it fresh, okay? Leave it fresh so that when we do make this move up to 14 to 16K and we do come down for this larger correction, this area remains untested and remains a great level of demand, okay, for us to bounce off of and then catapult to 20K plus. And the reason I say that is because any resistance or support level, the more that it gets tested, the weaker it gets. So this area used to be an area of resistance, okay? Now it's an area of support. If we were to test it right now before heading to 14K plus, some of the buyers, let's say there's 10 buyers waiting at this area just to make things simple. If there's 10 buyers waiting at this area and we come down here and we test it now, maybe 5 of those buyers fill their orders and they're no longer just in buying. They filled up what they needed to down here. Now we go back up to 14K plus, we clear these highs, and we come flying back down to test this region again. Well, half the buyers that wanted to buy their share here bought, and so the other half are left. So there's 5 out of 10 buyers left. So there's less demand essentially to absorb the drop, okay, if this level has already been tested once. That's just one example, a very simplified example, but I'm trying to make this point that generally, all right, it's not 100%, but generally, areas of supply and demand get weaker with every test, okay? So that's one possibility. The other possibility is we go up to 14K without testing this region, okay? Everyone who's waiting here right now to buy this level in the next week or two is still waiting. They're still missing out. We keep pushing up past 14K. We start pushing up to 15 to 16 to 17. And the guys that were waiting here for the dream long entry decide, you know what? It's never coming. We're going to new all-time highs tomorrow. And they decide to buy here at 14, 15, or 16K. Then we start coming down and we fall back into this range, and then everyone starts panic selling, and that drives us all the way back down to this region here, where everyone who's been waiting for the dream long entries, aside from the guys that got washed out, are able to finally get their buy, okay? At this point, after breaking these highs and coming back down, I know a lot of people already are going to be calling for 3K again, and they're going to miss this opportunity anyways. But the point is that this will be a fresh level of demand that hasn't been tested, which increases the odds that it can handle a drop of this magnitude down into this region before we do vault up to 20K plus. So personally, I'd prefer if we just kept going up here. I feel like it's what a lot of people aren't expecting. It would cause a lot of FOMO. A lot of people are kind of waiting for this 10.5K region. It would cause a lot of FOMO if we never got it. A lot of people are still missing out from where we are here because a lot of people thought we were going to break down. So maybe they sold their positions, maybe they got out. We shot up. Now they're waiting for a nice retest to go long, right? So if we don't get that retest and we simply continue up, a lot of guys I think are still going to be waiting on the sidelines here as we continue to push up, and it's going to cause more FOMO, and those guys are essentially going to FOMO in on the way up and drive price even higher. And at the same time, when we do come back down for that major correction that I think is going to happen before new highs, we'll have a fresh area of demand here to catch us, essentially. So I prefer that we don't test this region, and I think that would be ideal, but you never know, it could happen on this drop as well. All right, guys, I want to take another look at Bitcoin here, and let's talk about in a little bit more detail what I expect to happen over the next couple of months. I've already told you guys that I am expecting a drop to 11.1K or potentially 10.5K, essentially the dream long entry region, before continuation to the upside. But what do I think is going to happen here in the immediate short term after these levels are met? So there's a couple of possibilities here, but I'm going to share with you guys what I think is most likely on Bitcoin here, right? So from an Elliott wave perspective, okay, and this is the same way that I was able to sort of identify that we were going to break out of this region here. We had, actually, in fact, we're having a, wow, I just noticed that. We're forming a very, very similar Elliott wave structure right here. Very, very similar to what we formed right here. That's actually pretty incredible. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about right now. I just noticed this right now while making this video, so, but this is actually pretty sweet. Okay, so here's what I saw down here, okay, and what we seem to be now replicating, like literally picture perfectly. But I had we had an expanded flat here, okay, WXY. Then we got this zigzag here, okay, WXY, okay, and then we got this complex corrective structure. So essentially this entire structure here was made up of 3 complex corrective structures, and I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit easier for you guys to understand. So we had this expanded flat. That's going to be the first structure. I'm going to make that red. Go ahead and make that color, okay? Then we had a zigzag. That was a second structure. I'm going to make that green, okay? And then we had a final complex corrective structure, right? Which was, you can call it any number of W, X, Y, X, Z's, but essentially one final complex corrective structure here that essentially came all the way to here, and then we erupted up for an impulse. And I'll make this one yellow, okay? Now take a look at what we're getting here. This is actually pretty crazy. Once again, we look to have a expanded flat correction, okay? That's essentially what we got here in red. We're getting here in red again. Then once again, we got a zigzag, okay? And what we have here in green is what we have here in green, okay? Literally identical, guys. If we popped up here, we deviated from the range, we fell back in it. And the same thing happened here. We popped up here, we deviated from the range, we fell back in it. So at this stage, I'm looking for a final structure to match the yellow, okay? The only difference is I don't think that we'll necessarily get this type of a structure this time. I think it could be a little bit different here. And what I'm looking at is some sort of a final yellow wave. And I'm looking for it to at least touch these lows 11.1K, or it could possibly reach these lows 11.5K. But either way, some sort of a structure here. And I don't know, again, which one it's going to be. We'll have to wait and see. But some sort of a final third wave structure, okay? Now, here's where it gets interesting. After this 3-wave structure completes, there's 2 possibilities that I can see happening here. And what I want you guys to keep in mind is that as long as we're ranging inside of these green lines, or we're falling out of them, or breaking out of them and then falling back in essentially, that's good for your alts, okay? Your alts are going to run as long as we're essentially chopping sideways here on Bitcoin. When do your alts suffer? Your alts suffer when Bitcoin does something like this. That's when alts take a hit. But as long as Bitcoin is moving sideways in this range, or in this range here, your alts are going to fly. So it's a great time to be in alts right now, no doubt about it. But let's take a look at what could happen after we complete this yellow structure, after we tag 11.1K or 11.5 or 10.5K. So after this completes, there's 2 possibilities, okay? One is that we then start our next impulse to match the one that we got right here, okay? Let me go ahead and change the color of this. We'll make this orange, and I'm gonna make it pretty bold. Okay. So one possibility is that we have a move to match this, okay? And that's essentially going to be our wave that takes us up to 14K plus. So after we tag 11.1K, after we tag 10.5K, one or both of them, we get our next impulse to the upside, okay? And this is where all your alts are going to take a hit essentially against Bitcoin, not necessarily against USD, but against Bitcoin. And this actually kind of makes a lot of sense at this point in time, because the way that Bitcoin dominance looks, we know that Bitcoin dominance is getting ready for a bounce. And if Bitcoin rockets up like this and heads to 14K plus, then that's probably exactly what Bitcoin dominance is going to do. It's probably going to bounce and bounce pretty hard at that. So that's the first scenario, okay? And in this case, you probably want to be a little bit more exposed to Bitcoin than you do want to be exposed to alts, because Bitcoin's probably going to outperform them. But there are certain key alts, and I'll go into this in more videos later, but there's certain alts that are going to perform well with Bitcoin as it runs up here, because they look great against Bitcoin right now, which means they're ready to make a leg up against Bitcoin. So there are going to be some alts that are going to be exception to the rule that are actually going to run up while Bitcoin's running up. One of them, again, I'll get into this in another video. I don't want to get it too complicated here, but one of them in particular I've been talking about quite often. You guys will probably already know what that is, but there's certain alts that are primed against their BTC pairings that will run up as Bitcoin runs up. But a lot of alts, and most of the alts, are going to fall against Bitcoin as Bitcoin runs up. So you want to be very picky and choosy with what alt you're in, or you just want to be more exposed to Bitcoin if this were to happen. Now the alternate scenario, and this is the one that I would love to see happen. I know you would love to see it happen because it's going to make your alts go wild. But the alternate scenario is that this 3-legged structure is just the first structure in a much more complex structure, okay? And what I mean by that is that this 3-legged structure itself just comprises, or is just the W wave of a larger corrective structure, okay? And all this means is that we'll be moving sideways for a lot longer in this region rather than just impulsing up shortly after. I do find this scenario to be a little bit less likely, simply because of the way that Bitcoin dominance looks right now. And I mean, it would be great. I'm not too sure if we get it. Okay, but if we do get it, this would be the dream scenario for your alts, because the entire time where Bitcoin is chopping around here, your alts are going to run like mad. So, it might even happen. We'll have to wait and see. I'm not quite sure, guys. We'll have to wait and see. But the bottom line here, guys, is whether we tap 11.1K or 10.5K and then head up straight to 14K, or whether we oscillate here for the next couple of months, the bottom line is that your downside here is limited and your upside is going to be massive, okay? If we just rip up to 14K after dropping down to one of these 2 levels, your alts are going to suffer against BTC, but they're going to go up in USD value. The whole market's going to go up with Bitcoin, okay? If instead we hit these levels and then we just chop your sideways for the next 3 or 4 months, again, your alts are going to go up even stronger than they would have if Bitcoin were to just rip to 14K tomorrow. So what I'm trying to get across here, guys, the point I'm trying to make here, is take advantage of the market the next few months, because alts are going to fly and you're going to make a lot of money. I mean, these last few months have been absolutely crazy. Just in this time that we've been consolidating here since the beginning of the month have been probably some of my most lucrative trading weeks in a long, long time, because alts are just going absolutely mad right now. And so I can't emphasize this enough. The way that I'm playing the markets right now is very aggressively. I'm buying all the dips, and it's just easy to make money right now, guys. I can't say it any other way, because alts have so much room and so much ground to make up, and most of them, as I've been saying for months now, have seen the bottoms on their USD pairings. So downside is limited across the board right now, and the upside potential is massive, not just on Bitcoin, but on many other coins here. So guys, this pretty much sums up what I want to talk about for the market and my market update. You guys now know what I'm thinking, exactly what I'm thinking, where I'm thinking this drop is going to end, what I'm expecting to happen next. Ultimately, and I've been saying this since we closed our monthly above 6K months ago, I think we're headed to 14K plus next. And the path that we take to get there could take a little bit longer. It could happen a little bit quicker. But regardless, guys, the downside risk, in my opinion, again, this is not financial advice, but in my opinion, the downside risk on markets right now is low, and the upside potential is massive. This type of risk to reward, I don't think we've seen in a very long time in these markets, where we have this floor at 10.5K essentially, or the lower 10K regions, I should say, and the initial target at 14K, but more likely 16 to 17K. And while Bitcoin has moved up quite high off of its lows, off of 3,000, there's plenty of alts that have not yet done so, and they're not going to go anywhere but up, in my opinion. Minus these little corrections. What I'm trying to say is the bottom is in across the market as a whole. And so take advantage of this, guys. That is my update for now. I will be making more videos on specific coins in the near future. I'm really excited now that I got this new setup in. Everything's going super fast and it's super efficient, and I love it. So I'm really excited to make more videos for you guys. As always, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. Spread the word, guys, and I'll keep posting more content. That's it for today, guys. Have a great day.